Good afternoon, dear students. How are you all doing? Come on. Finally, we are on to the next chapter. We have completed money market discussion as well. Sir, what chapter we are on to? Friends, international trade. International trade. So, friends, if we talk about international trade, na, it is generally divided. The topic international trade can be divided in, you could say 4 to 5 topics. Sir, what are the 4 to 5 topics? And this is going to be the topic of our upcoming classes. Okay. This is going to be the topic of our upcoming classes. These 4 to 5 topics that I am saying. Number one is theories of international trade. It is also divided into 5 units, and for 5 units, we have been assigned 5 days. Okay. So, a very systematic approach taken by ICAI. Theories of international trade. Number one. Number two, instruments of trade policy. I am telling you just the division of how our concept looks like. Okay. Instrument of trade policy, trade negotiations, trade negotiations, exchange rate discussion, and finally, capital movements, international capital movements, international capital movements. Sir, we just noticed something. I asked what? I asked what? Sir, we just noticed that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 topics we have given us, sir. Sir, 5 topics we have given us, sir. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that mean that around we will take in international trade 5 classes? Exactly correct guess. Okay. Starting from today, theories of international trade. Theories of international trade. Shall we talk about it? Okay, sir. So we shall study about theories of international trade. A very interesting chapter. What did I say? A very interesting chapter. This topic that we are discussing today, theories of international trade, is a very interesting chapter. I believe you all will enjoy it a lot because there's a lot to learn here. Theories of international trade. Okay. So we are discussing theories of international trade, everybody. सर बताइए आप इसके बारे में आप हम लोगों को क्या बताएंगे? सर, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, what is international trade is the first question, because we will discuss a lot of theories here. Heckscher all-in theory, theory of comparative advantage, theory of absolute advantage, and so many other things are there. Theory of this new trade theory is there, right? So there are a lot of things that we can study here. But before that, prior to that, what I wanted to know from you was, what is international trade? A very basic question मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूं कि इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड क्या है, ये बताइए आप मुझे. Everyone tell me, what is international trade? A very basic question indeed I have asked you all. Correct. If I tell it in English, international trade is basically the exchange of goods and services between countries for some quid pro quo, mean for some consideration, for some money, or buying and selling of goods and services across the borders is international trade. गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज का एक कंट्री से दूसरे कंट्रीज के साथ खरीदना बेचना ही इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड है. इसमें कोई और बहुत बड़ा बात नहीं है. खरीदो तो भी इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड है, बेचो तो भी इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड है. जो जबान आपको पसंद आए वो जबान यूज करो. वेरी गुड सर. सो लेट्स राइट इट डाउन. इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड, इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड is the exchange of is the exchange of goods International trade is the exchange of goods, services, comma capital between countries. Exchange of goods, services, comma capital between countries. Understood or not, everybody? What is international trade? Exchange of goods, services, capital between countries. What is international trade? Exchange of goods, services, and capital between countries. Exchange of goods, services, and capital between countries. That is international trade. Bus. Exchange of goods, services, and capital between countries. Is that clear, friends? Yes, sir, that is clear. Now, friends, international trade has both advantages and disadvantages. Let's talk about each one of them, okay? Advantages of international trade, and then you have disadvantages of international trade. Advantages of international trade, and then you have disadvantages of international trade. Advantages of international trade and disadvantages of international trade. Let's talk about them, friends. You know what the advantage is? Number one, economic efficiency. The biggest advantage is, friends, economic efficiency. International trade, biggest advantage. Economic efficiency. Sir, we did not understand. What does economic efficiency means? I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Friends, when I am selling in my own country, as a company, I can produce to a certain quantity only. But if the entire world is my customer, then I can increase my production facilities. Because of that, my per unit cost will fall. In microeconomics, you call it economies of scale. You remember the production chapter you have done in micro portion? There you have studied it. Economies of scale. I'll give you an example. Na? Coca-Cola. Guys, do you have any guess how much we buy a 1 liter bottle of Coca-Cola at, I think, 60 rupees, right? Can you take a guess of how much it takes Coca-Cola to make that bottle along with everything? You will be surprised to know it hardly takes 1 rupee for a 60 rupee bottle to be prepared. How come, sir, Coca-Cola is able to manufacture or produce it so cheap? Your answer is already in the question. Because of the massive production. Because of the massive production. It is producing and selling across the world. Because of such a huge production capacity, the economies of scale are resulting, because of which per unit costs are falling. सर आप क्या बोले, थोड़ा समझाइए. इकोनॉमिक एफिशिएंसी का मतलब है कि पर यूनिट कॉस्ट का कम लगना. इकोनॉमिक एफिशिएंसी का अर्थ है पर यूनिट कॉस्ट का कम लगना, मतलब खर्चे का कम लगना. इकोनॉमिक एफिशिएंसी का अर्थ है खर्चे का कम लगना. इकोनॉमिक एफिशिएंसी का अर्थ है खर्चों का कम लगना. सीधी बात, नो बकवास. पर यूनिट कॉस्ट क्यों कम लग रहा है? पर यूनिट कॉस्ट क्यों कम लग रहा है? इसलिए क्योंकि हम लोग लार्ज मात्रा में प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं. लार्ज मात्रा में कब प्रोड्यूस कर पा रहे हैं? जब हम लोग पूरी दुनिया को सामान बेच रहे हैं. दैट इज व्हाट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट. So, economic efficiency is the first point where we can write about economic growth. Then, economies of large scale production. Huh? This is the number one advantage of international trade. Yes. Yes. Next, access to new markets. Friends, next is access to new markets. What did I say? Access to new markets. For example, Coca-Cola is now not only selling in US, it's selling across the borders. So it has got access to new markets. McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Domino's is selling in more than one country. They are able to access new markets because of international trade. So that is what I am talking about. Access to new markets. Huh? Technological innovation. Sir, can you explain this? Definitely, I will. Friends, today businesses are expanding so much that innovation means new kinds of discoveries are being made. I'll give you an example. Friends, how many of you have been to McDonald's? आप में से कौन कौन मैकडोनल्ड्स गया है? चैट में बताइए मुझे फटाफट. How many of you have been to McDonald's? You all tell me. Sir, we have gone. Maximum of you are telling, sir, we have gone. Do you know or you don't? Tell me. In McDonald's, you have had this Mac Aloo Tikki. There is something called Mac Aloo Tikki. Have you had it? Yes or no? Come on, tell me one thing. Sir, why are you talking to us about food? I'll tell you, na. Mac Aloo Tikki is, I don't know, but last I knew it was around 30 or 40 rupees. Maybe I am wrong, but it was around that figure. Yes. Now you will tell me, MACD that has come from US, America, is McDonald's selling Mac Aloo Tikki in America? No. It is because Indian market requires potato. Aloo ka products Indian market uses a lot. This is innovation I was talking to you about. R&D, research and development activities also rises. R&D activities also rises. R&D activities also rises because of international trade. Because of international trade. Because since I am selling to the entire world, I need to know what the entire world needs. मैं अगर पूरी दुनिया में सामान बेच रहा हूं तो मैं रिसर्च करूंगा कि पूरी दुनिया को चाहिए क्या, तब ना मैं बेच पाऊंगा. That is what it is talking about. Technological innovation, R&D. R&D. Now, friends, for example, if suppose I am teaching, when I am taking this class, for example, suppose this class is international trade. Suppose, for example, now I am working on my notes, I am studying my notes, and you see I am writing everything. It is very easy for me to just open this institute ka mat that I have. Just a second, let me show it to you. It is very easy for me to just open this institute ka mat and make you mark this like this. Can't I do that? Of course I can do that. But friends, my logic is, then since macroeconomics portion is new for students, then I should make the notes easier. For that, I am having to do research and development. But suppose if I was teaching only one student, suppose somebody, Mr. X, student X was sitting in front of me. So would I do that much amount of R&D for that one student? No. Same applies for company. If a company was selling product to a local area or to a few customers, it would not work a lot on R&D. But since the incentive of the company is to sell across the globe, they are indulging in R&D activities. Understood or not understood, friends? R&D means research and development. Research and development. Research and development. Now, how many of you have heard of Kellogg's? Kellogg's you have heard of? Now, companies like Kellogg's, they are now selling packet upma, packet poha for Indian market. Isn't it innovation? Isn't it research and development? Because they know that in Indian market, people consume more of upma and poha as a breakfast. Exactly my point. International trade forces the companies to think beyond what they have already done. Next. Next point, sir. Increased employment, increased employment, increased employment, better standards of living. Friends, I'll give you an example. Friends, have you ever called to Dell or HP customer care, or for Microsoft customer care? Have you ever called some customer care you have spoken of, or Apple for that matter? No, all these companies are foreign brands, but the people talking to you are Indians. So these people have outsourced this activity to the people in India. So they are getting employment. If new businesses come into our country, our people will get work na. That is the simple logic. Better standard of living. Better standard of living. Friends, today you see I'm wearing a spectacle. You see there are a lot many options now of spectacles that I have. When is the standard of living improved? When does any individual standard of living improves? Of course, when there is a lot of alternative available. If the alternative available are limited, if the alternatives available are limited, if the alternatives available are limited, then it is a cause of trouble. Na? If the alternatives available are limited, then it is a cause of trouble. Na? But if you have a lot of alternatives available, friends, if you have a lot of alternatives available, then that is the best thing that can happen. Is that clear, everyone? Yes or no? Come on, guys. That is what elevates the standard of living. I'm wearing a watch today, but there are 10 other watches I get to choose from once I buy a watch. This improves my standard of living. Na. This improves your standard of living. Na. You're talking about technological innovation. You are doing the class in the institute's BOS app. That itself is a technological innovation. Either you are attending the classes from the BOS app or you are attending it on YouTube. Both are technological innovations. Why these innovations have come? Because of large scale demand, because of international trade being existent. Sir, we understand. Fifth point, fifth point, fifth point. Utilization of resources. You know, resource utilization becomes good because if suppose in my country there is excess of labor, my means India. In our country, India, there is excess of labor. If we cater only to Indian requirements, then many people will be unemployed. So the resources are getting employed or properly utilized because of international trade. And one more advantage you cannot discount, trade creates good relation between countries. You see, India and Russia have such good relations. Yes or no? What is the reason? You are correct. Trade. Today, India and America's relation are also good. What is the reason? Number one reason is trade. Yes, there is political diplomacy and everything is going on, but number one कारण trade है. बट नंबर वन कारण ट्रेड है. अरे भाई, जिससे मेरा पैसा आता है हम उससे झगड़ा क्यों करेंगे? आप ये बताइए. Today we talk about Indo-China war. Is there any war taking place on a larger scale? No, because both the countries and particularly India is importing a lot from China. So India is not in a situation to go at war with China. Still trade is taking place. Still we are importing from China. Trade strengthens bonds. Trade strengthens bonds. Sir, is that clear, friends? Yes, sir. Now we will talk about, friends, some disadvantages associated with trade. फ्रेंड्स, उम्मीद है क्लियर होगा बातचीत जो मैंने बताया आप लोगों को. Yes or no, dear students? Great. Very good. Now let's talk about disadvantages. Number one is negative for labor market. Disadvantages. Negative for labor market. Friends, how? Try to pay attention. Friends, if the technology, friends, if the technology keep getting upgraded, if the technology keeps getting upgraded, if the technology keeps getting upgraded, you tell me the demand for labor. You tell me, na, the demand for labor. When I said labor, I mean the unskilled labor. I mean the unskilled labor. Will it rise or fall? Of course, it is going to fall. So it's negative for labor market. That's the truth. Next, it is not beneficial to all nations. Generally, it is seen that one nation takes an advantage. How many of you know about the East India Company story? What East India Company did with India? East India Company came as, tea traders, etc., as simple traders for doing business with India. I think in the time of Jahangir, if I give you some historical perspective, I think it was during the times of Jahangir. Today, you see what is happening. Today means then see what happened later on. It basically colonized us for 200 years. Exactly my point. It's not beneficial. Just because trade is taking place, all the countries are benefited. That's not always the case or always the situation. May not always be beneficial. International trade 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 may not always be beneficial. What is the third point, sir? Sir, what is the third point? There is immense stress on exports due to which natural resources are exhausted. Due to which you see natural resources are exhausted. Due to which natural resources are exhausted. Exhausted means basically overutilized, exploited, you could say. Fourth, international trade. International trade has negative effect on pattern of demand, on pattern of demand. For example, when foreign brands come, the sale of domestic companies may reduce. When foreign brands come, the sale of domestic companies may reduce. For example, you see there is Domino's, and then there is a local pizzeria in your area. The sale of this local pizzeria is very less, Domino's is very high. Because a local business cannot compete with an international brand business in most cases. Now, don't give me exceptions. Exceptions would not be considered example. So more often than not, it has a negative effect on demand for domestic products that is produced in the country itself, that is produced in our country itself. Friends, is that clear? Yes, sir, it's clear. Fifth point. Fifth point. Just like there is bonding, it may also create rivalry among countries. Rivalry among countries. Rivalry among countries. Because of competition. Because of competition. Today, see na, there are so many countries. The Gulf countries, the Kuwait, Iraq, Iran. Friends, you Google the 1991 Gulf War. Just search for the Gulf War. You see, it was a war because of export that was done for competing for oil. It was, I guess, between Kuwait and Iran. Saddam Hussein was involved in this war. Just Google 1991 Gulf War. So such kind of wars may take place between countries because each will want to sell their products. Each will want to export their products. So I will read it all. Number one is negative for labor market. Number two may not be always beneficial. Number three, stress on exports due to which natural resources are exhausted. मीन्स रिसोर्सेज आर ओवर यूटिलाइज्ड. जितने नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज है, क्योंकि हम लोगों को प्रॉफिट करना है, एक्सपोर्ट करना है, प्रॉफिट करना है, एक्सपोर्ट करना है, ये दिमाग में चलता है, उसकी वजह से हम लोग रिसोर्सेज को ओवर यूटिलाइज कर लेते हैं. फ्यूचर जनरेशन के लिए रिसोर्स फिर बचता नहीं है. नेक्स्ट बात, इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड हैज नेगेटिव इफेक्ट ऑन पैटर्न ऑफ डिमांड. जो डिमांड है वो गिर जाता है. International trade has negative effect on pattern of demand. And lastly, there is rivalry among countries. And lastly, there is rivalry among countries. Lastly, there is rivalry among countries. Friends, lastly, there is rivalry among countries. Countries fight with each other. There is rivalry among countries. Is that clear, friends? Yes or no? Come on, guys. Very good. Now we talk about important theories of international trade. I will highlight for you some theories that we will complete in the class. Important theories of international trade. Important theories of international trade. Okay. All right, sir. All right. So let's discuss some theories. Here it is. Important theories of international trade. Number one theory. What is the number one theory? It is the mercantilist's view. It is the mercantilist's view. Number two, theory of absolute advantage. Number two is theory of absolute advantage. Number three is theory of comparative advantage. Number four is Heckscher-Ohlin theory. Heckscher-Ohlin theory. Heckscher-Ohlin theory. What else do we have? Mercantilist view, absolute advantage, comparative advantage, Heckscher-Ohlin theory. New trade theory. New trade theory. These are mainly the 5 theories that we have in our curriculum, which we will discuss one by one, and we will write some bullet points on it, at least the important ones, and then we will gradually move on to the MCQ portion of institute material. That we will do, of course. First, just confirm. Shall we start, friends? Okay, let's go. Sir, mercantilist's view. Bus. Now, let me explain it in two languages, then we will write. Let me explain it in two languages, then we will write. What are we studying? Theories of international trade. What are we studying? Theories of international trade. क्या पढ़ रहे हैं? Theories of international trade. मैं दो languages में बताऊंगा. I'll explain it in two languages. First in English, then in Hindi, and then we will take note of the same. This theory originated in West Europe. Around, you could say, the 1700s or earlier, even earlier than 1700s, traditionally speaking. What did this theory say? It says that one country's benefit is other country's loss. Bas. One country's gain is other country's loss. Meaning, according to it, trade is a zero-sum game. Trade is a zero-sum game. Means, if suppose USA, just for example, exports something to India for rupees 10 crores, then as per this theory, India loses 10 crores, USA gains 10 crores, and so totally it is zero. Plus 10 minus 10, it is zero. As per mercantilist view, international trade is a zero-sum game. The focus is export more. As per mercantilist view, the logic is export more, collect gold coins, silver coins, bus. Understood, not understood, friends? Yes, sir, understood. Friends, understood, not understood, friends? Yes, sir, understood. All right. So let's write it down. That is what it is, mercantilist view. अब सर हिंदी में बताइए. ये बोलता है कि एक कंट्री का फायदा दूसरे कंट्री का नुकसान है. तो इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड एक जीरो सम गेम है, जिसके दरमियान अगर एक कंट्री 10 करोड़ कमाता है तो दूसरा 10 करोड़ खो रहा है. कुल मिलाकर जीरो हो रहा है. कुल मिला के जो टोटल आ रहा है वो शून्य आ रहा है. बात खत्म. इतना ही है मर्केंटाइलिस्ट व्यू. एक का फायदा दूसरे का नुकसान, बस. गोल होना चाहिए मर्केंटाइलिस्ट व्यू के अनुसार कि आप जितना बेच सके बेचें, और बदले में जितना कॉइन्स एंड सिल्वर और गोल्ड कॉइन्स खरीद मतलब ले सकते हैं, लीजिए. सिल्वर और गोल्ड कॉइन इसलिए बोल रहा हूं क्योंकि ये ट्रेडिशनल थ्योरी है. उस समय सिल्वर और गोल्ड का कॉइन्स ही आपको सामान के बदले मिलता था. ये है मर्केंटाइलिस्ट व्यू. ये सबसे पुराना व्यू है, ऐसा मेरा मानना है. फ्रेंड्स, इज दैट क्लियर? यस और नो? Yes, Tripti, you must definitely listen to the class. It is very important. Even if you have joined late. Actually, she's telling she joined late. No problem. All right. So let's write it down. It's a policy of Western European countries. Policy of Western European countries. Policy of Western European countries based on premise that national wealth and power are best served by increasing exports and collecting precious metals in return. And collecting precious metals in return. And collecting precious metals in return. So policy of Western European countries based on promise that national wealth and power are best served by increasing exports and collecting precious metals in return. It says that more gold and silver a country has, the richer it is. More gold and silver a country has, richer it is. This is mercantilist view. Here it is said that the goal should be maximize exports, minimize imports. Maximize exports, minimize imports. Goal should be maximize exports, minimize imports. Maximize exports, minimize imports. Maximize exports, minimize imports. That should be the goal. So it's a policy of West European countries based on premise that national wealth and power are best served by increasing exports and collecting precious metals in return. More gold and silver a country has, richer it is. The goal should be maximize exports, minimize imports. One more point we can write. This view tells that trade is a zero-sum game. This view argues that trade is a zero-sum game. That is the overall opinion of this view, mercantilist view. This is the overall opinion of this theory, mercantilist view. Understood, not understood, friends? Come on. Then we will talk about theory of absolute advantage. I'll give an example also of the theory of absolute advantage. Mercantilist view is an old view. Is that clear, friends? Yes. All are important opinions. This is the first one. If not written, then at least take a screenshot, friends, because I'll move to the next point now. Okay. Next, we talk about theory of absolute advantage. Theory of absolute advantage. Let's talk about this theory. Theory of absolute advantage. What does this theory say? What does this theory say? What does this theory say? Theory of absolute advantage. A simple thing is, acha, by the way, who gave this theory? Adam Smith. Means the strongest believer in this theory was Adam Smith. Theory of absolute advantage. Acha, friends, what should I do? First I should explain or first I should make you write? You all tell me. Because then the approach will be different. पहले explain करें कि पहले लिखें? Come on, guys. No, Miss Chitam Reddy Kavya, no. Okay. So let's try to understand. Let's try to understand. Let's first explain. See, I am giving you an example of two countries. Okay, try and understand now. Huh? You have told me, so now try and understand. Okay, let's see. Here, I am writing the name of a commodity. This is country A. Country A. This is country B. You can note down this example. I don't mind that. Now, friends, country A using labor. Using what? Here we are mainly concerned with labor. Using labor, country A can produce. Acha, wheat is measured in bushels per hour. Bushels per hour is like, what should I say? A measuring unit for the quantity of wheat produced per hour. So country A can produce 6 bushels per hour, while country B can produce 1 bushel per hour. If we talk about cloth, cloth is measured in friends yards per hour because we are talking about labor. So we are using it in per hour. Now country A can produce 4 yards per hour labor, while country B can produce 5 yards per hour labor. Now, as far as wheat production is concerned, अगर wheat की बात करें तो wheat production में कौन सी कंट्री बेहतर है? हिंदी में बोलूं तो कंट्री ए 6 बुशल्स पर आवर प्रोड्यूस कर सकती है, कंट्री बी 1, जबकि क्लॉथ कंट्री ए 4 यार्ड्स पर आवर कर सकती है और कंट्री बी 5 यार्ड्स पर आवर। तो मेरे को आप ये बताइए, व्हीट में कौन ज्यादा बढ़िया है? हु इज बेटर इन प्रोड्यूसिंग व्हीट? हु इज बेटर इन प्रोड्यूसिंग व्हीट? ऑफ कोर्स योर आंसर इज वेरी ऑब्वियस टू मी. I can see my friends are telling, sir, country A. Okay, now my question to you is, who is better in cloth? Very good. So the answer is, so friends, the answer is country A has absolute advantage. Friends, country A, friends, country A, friends, country A has absolute advantage. Friends, country A has absolute advantage. Friends, country A has absolute advantage as far as wheat is concerned, while country B has absolute advantage if cloth is concerned. So what should happen is country A should stick to producing wheat and export wheat to country B, and country B should produce cloth and export to country A. Means जिसमें आपका strength है आप वही करें. Export your strength, import your weakness is the logic. This is absolute advantage. Where one country is good in one commodity, other country is good in some other commodity. So what you are good in, you export that, and what you are bad in, you import that. This is theory of absolute advantage. क्या थ्योरी ऑफ एब्सोल्यूट एडवांटेज समझ आया सबको? ये बोलता है आप जिस चीज में अच्छे हो उसको आप बेच दो, और जिस चीज में आप कंपैरेटिवली खराब हो, खराब नहीं बोल रहा मैं, कंपैरेटिवली, अब जैसे ये 4 है ये 5 है, तो ये 4 भी खराब नहीं है, बट 5 के मुकाबले तो खराब ही है ना, तो आप जो कंट्री 5 कर सकते हैं आप उससे खरीद लो, और आप 6 बेच सकते हो वेट, आप बेच दो. क्या बात समझ में आई? इसको बोलते हैं थ्योरी ऑफ एब्सोल्यूट एडवांटेज, स्टेटेड बाय एडम स्मिथ. अगर क्लियर है तो लेट्स राइट इट डाउन देन. Friends, if it's clear, then start writing it down. Let's start writing it down. Okay, so let's start writing it down, friends. So according to Adam Smith, we are discussing theory of absolute advantage. We are discussing theory of absolute advantage. Okay. We are discussing theory of absolute advantage. Just wanted to show you, we are going as per ICAI material. We did benefits of international trade. Then we did arguments, that is demerits of international trade. Then we discussed the mercantilist view. Right? So see, it focuses on exports over imports, as I had told you. It says massive and aggressive export over import to accumulate wealth, as I told you. Next, theory of absolute advantage, as I told you, Adam Smith. Yes or no? So we are going as per ICAI material strictly. Okay, so let's write it down. According to Adam Smith, international trade is not a zero-sum game. International trade is not a zero-sum game. It states that a country will specialize, that a country will specialize in production and export of a commodity. It states that a country will specialize in production and export of a commodity. Country will specialize in production and export of a commodity in which it has absolute advantage. In which it has absolute advantage. According to Adam Smith, international trade is not a zero-sum game. It states that a country will specialize in production and export of a commodity in which it has absolute advantage. Very important, in which it has absolute advantage. In which it has absolute advantage. Right, everyone? Right, sir? In which it has absolute advantage. In which it has absolute advantage. Now, let's talk about this. What kind of advantage? Cost advantage. Absolute cost advantage. Means my production cost is low. So in other words, I will tell you, in other words, exchange of goods between two countries, between two countries will take place only, will take place only if each of the two countries, in other words, exchange of goods between two countries will take place only if each of the two countries can produce one commodity at an absolutely low production cost than other country. अगर मैं दूसरी कंट्री के मुकाबले कम में सामान बना पा रहा हूं, कम मतलब कम खर्चे में सामान बना पा रहा हूं, तभी मैं उस सामान को बनाकर एक्सपोर्ट करूंगा, अगर वो कंट्री ज्यादा ये काम मेरे से बेहतर कर ले रही है तो मैं इंपोर्ट कर लूंगा. In other words, exchange of goods between two countries will take place only if each of the two countries can produce one commodity at an absolutely one commodity at an absolutely low production cost than the other country. Then the other country, only then. Then means only then. Is that clear, friends? Yes, export the strength and import the weakness. Sir, can you tell us its advantage and disadvantage? Of course, I will tell you. But first, let me highlight for you that this theory of absolute advantage was came around the year 1776. Nobody will ask you time, but just for your extra information, I am telling you, around 1776, this theory of absolute advantage came into being. Understood? Now we will talk about advantage and disadvantage both. हम लोग एडवांटेज और डिसएडवांटेज का बात करेंगे थ्योरी ऑफ एब्सोल्यूट एडवांटेज के अंदर. इज दैट क्लियर फ्रेंड्स? लेट्स टॉक अबाउट इट देन. एडवांटेजेस, disadvantages. So friends, try and understand. Advantages, we are talking about this theory only, huh? Abhi bhi we are doing theory of this one only. Absolute advantage only. First was mercantilist view. It focuses maximize exports, minimize imports. Here. This theory says exports the strength, import the weakness. So let's see. Advantage. First of all, both countries will benefit here. It is a gain for both the countries. First of all, it is a gain for both the countries. Second thing is it considers importance of division of labor. It considers importance of division of labor. It considers importance of considers importance of division of labor, because this theory mainly talks about division of labor. Other factors are ignored here. So considers importance of division of labor. And if you see at the global level, world level, because each country is producing their strength only, so overall on the world level, on the earth level, the global output is maximized. Not country wise, global, overall, because each one is working on their strength. हर कोई अपने स्ट्रेंथ पर काम कर रहा है. Global output is maximized. Is that clear, everyone? Yes, sir, it's crystal clear to us. Yes, sir, it's crystal clear to us. But the disadvantages of theory, can any one of you tell? First of all, this theory is too simple. It seems theoretical. It's very simple. In reality, the world is not going that simple. Here, why is it simple? Because your labor is only considered as a factor input. अरे बाबा, there are other factor inputs also. और भी factor inputs होते हैं. It's too simple. Second thing is, labor is considered as the only factor input here. Is considered as only factor input here. These are the two major disadvantages. Let me show it to you. This is what is written in the material. It is based in two consideration. Number one, two countries are taken. No transportation cost is assumed. Labor. I told you now it is focusing on labor. right? So major assumptions, if I write about this theory, major assumptions. Number one, no transportation cost. Major assumptions I am saying. And number two is labor is mobile. These are the major assumptions. Yes, there are other assumptions. You got to read that, but these are the two major assumptions. Third, there are two countries that we are talking about. There are two countries we are talking about. Friends, is that clear? Theory of absolute advantage, is that clear, friends? Come on, everyone. Is that clear, friends? Come on. Yes, sir. You can see it here. It's very well written here. Again, you see, the focus is on respective amounts of labor. This is why I told you that labor wala point. Huh. As per this, if no absolute advantage, then nothing will take place. And remember, Adam Smith is called the father of economics. Adam Smith is called the father of economics. Don't forget that, friends. Adam Smith is called the father of economics. Don't forget that, friends. Adam Smith is called the father of economics. Don't forget that, friends. So, labor is mobile. Mobile means movable from one place to another. If we talk about disadvantages, it tells that it is too simple and labor is considered as the only factor input. Labor is considered as the only factor input. Friends, is that clear? Let's move on to the third theory then. Theory of comparative advantage. Theory of comparative advantage. Acha, by the way, example of this I have given here, huh? Theory of absolute advantage example I have given at the earlier only, at the earlier stage only. Yes, sir. Okay. Theory of comparative advantage. We have put the heading. Theory of comparative advantage. We have put the heading. Now, on all your request, what I am doing is again, I am giving 5 to 10 minutes break. In the meantime, anybody has any doubts, you can ask me. I am not going for any break. I will be taking doubts. Only those students who want break can take that. Around 3:05 or 3:07, I will start now. New topic, that is theory of comparative advantage. Meanwhile, anybody having any queries can ask me related to the topic. Come on, friends. We'll talk about theory of comparative advantage. No, we don't talk anything as such, Karthik. Whatever is written is enough. No extra requirements. Not at all. Assumption point two is labor is mobile. Mobile means movable. Labor can move from one place to another. Advantage of international trade is simply, Kavya, that it increases the innovation, it increases the research and development, it increases the economies of scale, and therefore per unit cost falls and employment levels rise. That is the advantage of international trade. In simple language, sales increases, that is the biggest advantage. Yes, there is no transportation cost. In reality, transportation cost is there. दिस इज अजम्पशन, मतलब ये अजम्पशन है, मानने के लिए है कि ट्रांसपोर्टेशन कॉस्ट नहीं लग रहा है। ये बस मानने के लिए कि ट्रांसपोर्टेशन कॉस्ट नहीं लग रहा है। बिकॉज अंजलि, एनी एक्सचेंज इज इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड। गुड सर्विसेज कैपिटल भी इज बिंग एक्सचेंज, दैट इज ऑल्सो इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड। Any doubts related to the chapter? Everyone, please feel free to ask. Yes. मीनिंग ऑफ जीरो सम गेम, प्रीतिज, मीनिंग ऑफ जीरो सम गेम इज कि अगर मेरा 100 का फायदा हुआ और आपका 100 का नुकसान हुआ, तो टोटल में +100 -100 जीरो हो गया। दैट इज कॉल्ड अ जीरो सम गेम। बट एज पर एब्सोल्यूट एडवांटेज, प्रीति, इट इज नॉट अ जीरो सम गेम। आपका कुछ फायदा हुआ तो मेरा भी कुछ फायदा हुआ, आपका कुछ फायदा हुआ तो मेरा भी फायदा हुआ। एक का फायदा एक का नुकसान ऐसा नहीं होता है। Anushka is asking how trade results in development of human resources. Anushka, for a simple reason. Anushka, when trade is taking place, training and technology, people learn. This is how human resources development take place. Sakshi, liberal trade means free trade, where any country can export or buy from any other country. That is liberal trade. Trade free from restrictions, government restrictions. Yes, Anuj. जीरो सम का बात केवल मर्केंटाइलिस्ट में करेंगे, करेक्ट। So let's talk about theory of comparative advantage now. Let's talk about theory of comparative advantage now. Friends, what does it say? I'll give you an example first, and then you can, we can start talking further. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about it. Example. Let's see. फर्स्ट आई एम एक्सप्लेनिंग, पहले मैं एक्सप्लेन कर रहा हूं, फिर अपने लिखने का काम खत्म करेंगे, ठीक है? पहले मैं एक्सप्लेन कर रहा हूं, फिर अपने लिखने का काम खत्म करेंगे, ठीक है? ऑल राइट, लेट्स सी. देयर इज कंट्री ए, कंट्री बी. ओके, लेट्स टॉक अबाउट लेट्स टॉक अबाउट wheat. bushels per hour. Country A 6, country B 1. And when we talk about cloth, yards per hour, it's 4, it's 2. Friends, if you look carefully, country B में दोनों जगह ही disadvantage है. If you look carefully, country B has disadvantage in both. Has absolute disadvantage in both. Has the absolute disadvantage in both. While country A has absolute advantage in both. Country A has absolute advantage in both. But now compare the advantage. In wheat, the advantage is in the ratio of 6:1. In cloth, the advantage is in the ratio of 2:1. Yes or no? This goes on to say कि yes, ये थ्योरी कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज का ये बोलता है कि हाँ, कंट्री ए का एडवांटेज दोनों में है. कंट्री ए का एडवांटेज दोनों में है, पर ज्यादा एडवांटेज कहां पे है? वीट में है. तो कंट्री ए को वीट बनाना चाहिए और क्लॉथ कुछ हद तक इंपोर्ट कर लेना चाहिए कंट्री बी से. एक्सक्यूज मी. Understood, not understood, friends? Yes, sir, understood. This is what this theory is stating. This is exactly what this theory is stating. What is it saying? When does this theory apply? ये theory apply कब होता है? जब एक कंट्री के पास ही हर गुड्स में ही एडवांटेज हो. इसको समझिए. एब्सोल्यूट एडवांटेज तब लगता है जब किसी एक गुड में किसी कंट्री का एडवांटेज है, दूसरे गुड में किसी कंट्री का एडवांटेज है, तब एब्सोल्यूट एडवांटेज लगता है. कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज बोलता है भाई एक ही कंट्री का दोनों गुड्स में एडवांटेज है. एक ही कंट्री का दोनों गुड्स में एडवांटेज है, जबकि एक कंट्री का दोनों गुड्स में डिसएडवांटेज है. तब ये लॉजिक लगता है. कंट्री बी हैज डिसएडवांटेज इन बोथ, ए हैज एब्सोल्यूट एडवांटेज इन बोथ. तब ये थ्योरी लागू होता है. आया बात समझ में? तब ये बोलता है कि जिसमें ज्यादा एडवांटेज है, द वन वेयर द कंट्री हैज ग्रेटर एडवांटेज, दैट इट शुड एक्सपोर्ट, एंड द वन वेयर इट हैज लेसर एडवांटेज, दैट इट शुड इंपोर्ट. अंडरस्टूड, नॉट अंडरस्टूड? अंडरस्टूड? यस सर. Who gave this theory? Sir David Ricardo. David Ricardo. David Ricardo. When? In 1817. The name of the book? Principles of Political Economy and Taxation. प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी एंड टैक्सेशन। सर हिंदी में समझाइए इसको एक बार। ये एक ऐसा थ्योरी है दोस्तों, कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज वाला, जहां एक कंट्री के पास दोनों प्रोडक्ट्स में ही एडवांटेज है। मतलब ये दोनों में ही अच्छा है कंट्री बी से। एब्सोल्यूट में क्या होता था, एक में अच्छा था एक में खराब था। कंपैरेटिव में कंट्री ये दोनों में ही अच्छा है, लेकिन जिस चीज में ज्यादा अच्छा है वो एक्सपोर्ट कर दो, जिस चीज में कम अच्छा है वो इंपोर्ट कर लो। ये थ्योरी ऑफ कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज बोलता है। सो एज पर दिस थ्योरी, एज पर दिस थ्योरी, एज पर दिस थ्योरी, बोथ नेशंस कैन गेन। दोनों कंट्रीज का फायदा होगा। बोथ नेशंस कैन गेन। बोथ नेशंस कैन गेन एज पर दिस थ्योरी। बोथ नेशंस कैन गेन if country A, if country A exports wheat and imports cloth from B. A has advantage in both, but the greater advantage is in case of wheat. तो wheat को जो है वो एक्सपोर्ट करो, और जो सेकेंड थिंग है क्लॉथ, उसको इंपोर्ट करो। अंडरस्टूड नॉट अंडरस्टूड? यस फ्रेंड्स, दिस इज थ्योरी ऑफ कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज। Friends, this is theory of comparative advantage. Those who have not written, copy it down. Then I'll talk about the next theory. Is that clear, friends? Yes, sir. It's clear. Now, sir, what are we talking about? Friends, now we are talking about Heckscher-Ohlin theory. Heckscher-Ohlin theory. Fourth one, Heckscher-Ohlin theory. Acha, before we move here, let's go towards the ICAI Met as well to see whether we have done everything or not. Let's see. Yes. David Ricardo, I have spoken about this person. Comparative absolute cost explained. Comparative advantage, yes. Country A, country B example given. हाँ, because of comparative advantage, this I have not told, so let's study. Trade raises the living standard of both the countries. Douglas Irwin calls comparative advantage good news for economic development. So Douglas Irwin was the supporter of this theory. Good news for economic development. Douglas Irwin. Just write it down. Supporter of this theory. Is that clear, friends? Okay. All right. Now let's talk about it. Heschel-Ohlin theory. Shall we talk about it, friends? All right. It is the modern theory of trade. It is also called the modern theory of trade. What does it say? Try to understand. Friends, Let's suppose Russia has more of oil. Yes or no? India has more of spices. As a natural resource, I am talking about. Each country has different abundance or scarcity of natural resources. So, for example, oil, there is scarcity in India as far as natural production is concerned, but there is plenty of spices in India. Yes or no? This theory says that whatever natural resources we have in abundance, जो भी natural resources हमारे पास ज्यादा मात्रा में हमारे पास means our country, that our country has in abundance, our country should export that. A very common sense based discussion. And whatever we lack, for example, oil, in India there is scarcity of oil, that we should import. This is the modern theory. Simple. No cost, nothing. If you have plenty of resources of something, export it. If you have scarcity of resources of something, import it. Full stop. That's it. Heckscher-Ohlin theory. It is also called factor endowment theory or modern theory. Okay. So it was developed by Ellie Heckscher, Ellie Heckscher, Ellie Heckscher, Ellie Heckscher, Bertil Ohlin. Here are their names. See, Bertil Ohlin. Got it? They give this theory. This theory is also known as modern theory or factor endowment theory. Also known as modern theory of trade or factor endowment theory. Endowment theory. हिंदी में बोलिए सर, हेक्सर-ओलिन थ्योरी क्या समझाता है? भैया ये बोलता है कि आपके कंट्री में जो ज्यादा है, जो ज्यादा है वो आप एक्सपोर्ट कर दो, जो कम है वो आप इंपोर्ट कर लो. So it takes into account two things: labor and capital. So I'll give you an example. See, on one side you have labor abundant countries, the country having a lot of labors. Labor abundant country, and then you have capital abundant country. On one side you have labor abundant country, on other side you have capital abundant country. I repeat, on one side you have labor abundant country, other side you have capital abundant country. As per, if a country is labor abundant, please listen carefully. If a country is labor abundant, then it is cheaper to produce labor intensive goods. It is cheaper to produce labor intensive goods because it is a labor abundant country like India. You can take the example of India. And capital abundant country example is USA. Capital abundant is USA. Labor abundant is India. Capital abundant is USA. So in a labor abundant country, it will be cheaper to produce those goods that require labor. So cheaper to produce labor intensive goods. Here, it is cheaper to produce Here is cheaper to produce capital intensive goods. Here it is cheaper to produce capital intensive goods. In labor abundant country, it is cheaper to produce labor intensive goods. Capital abundant country, cheaper to produce capital abundant goods. What they will do? They will export labor goods, LG. LG is labor goods. And they will import capital goods because there is scarcity of capital here. And what will this country do? Countries which are capital abundant, they will export capital goods like America, and they will import labor oriented goods. That is the logic. This is the factor endowment theory, friends. Is that clear, friends? Understood, friends? Now let's go through the institute material to see if anything is extra, but there won't be anything extra. See, export goods whose production uses intensively the factor of production that is abundant in the country. This is what I told. If our country has more of labor, then produce labor goods and export. Countries well endowed with capital should export capital goods, while those endowed with labor should export labor goods. This is what I made you write. यही तो मैंने आपको लिखाया. Friends, is that clear? Yes or no? Understood, friends? Relatively means comparatively. One of you asked the meaning of relatively. It means comparatively. So Heckscher-Ohlin theory, main portion that you need to know for MCQ is this. Eli Heckscher, Bertil-Ohlin, modern theory of trade, factor endowment theory, labor and capital. If you have labor abundance, it is cheaper to produce labor goods, export labor goods, import capital goods. If it is capital abundance country, then cheaper to produce capital intensive goods, export capital goods and import labor goods. Export capital goods and import labor goods. Friends, is that clear? Yes or no? Is that clear, friends? Yes or no? Right, sir. Right, sir. Now, friends, we will talk about new trade theory. Friends, now we will talk about new trade theory. New trade theory. New trade theory. Entity. It is the theory of 1970-71. Let's first discuss that. Sir, we have one question. Sir, why have you, skipped this portion? Theory of comparative cost and modern theory. Friends, have you forgotten? We are preparing for an MCQ exam. So, of course, if this requires reading, you can do a reading. But we are going to become chartered accountants, right? And the first thing is common sense. ICI is not going to give you right 5 differences between these two, right? So accordingly, we are moving to new international trade theory. Let's talk about what it is saying. Okay, let's talk about what it is saying. The revolution that swept through the theory of international trade in the first half of the 1980s, the rise of the so-called new trade theory left many of the insight of traditional theory intact. So what does this theory say? The new trade theory suggests that in practice, many traded goods are produced by industries that are both oligopolistic and subject to external economies. Thus, instead of a picture of international economy that is at a Pareto optimum means where everything is good, where everyone is acting practically. The new trade theory offers a picture of one in which markets normally lead to suboptimal results. It talks about the actual thing. बेसिकली द न्यू इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड थ्योरी, फ्रेंड्स, जो नया इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड थ्योरी है ना, वो बोलता है कि सच्चाई ये है कि कोई भी प्रैक्टिकली एकदम 100% बिहेव नहीं कर सकता, तो जो ओवरऑल आउटकम निकल कर आता है वो बेस्ट आउटकम से नीचे लेवल का आउटकम ही आता है, ऑप्टिमल आउटकम नहीं आता है। सब ऑप्टिमल आउटकम मतलब जो बेस्ट हो सकता था उससे कुछ नीचे का ही होता है, जो बेस्ट हो सकता था वो आउटकम कभी नहीं होता है। उम्मीद है क्लियर है आपको। क्लियर है आपको फ्रेंड्स? राइट। American economist and journalist Paul Krugman received the 2008 Nobel Prize for Economics for his work in economic geography and in identifying international trade patterns. In the late 70s, Paul Krugman noticed that the accepted model that economists used to explain pattern of international trade did not fit the data. Means economists were saying something, actual में हो रहा था कुछ और ही. So this is why new trade theory is very important, because it is based on practical outcomes, practical findings. It is not just hypothetical theory somebody has written. Acha. Sir, we understood. Heckscher all-in model predicted that trade would be based on factors as the ratio of capital to labor, with capital-rich countries exporting capital goods. We discussed labor-intensive goods imported by labor-rich countries. But Krugman noticed that most international trade takes place between countries with roughly the same ratio of capital to labor. So, for example, I'll tell you, what does it say? I'll give you an example. Friends, do you know Indian automobile companies? Do you know any Indian automobile companies? Yes, sir. We know Tata. Then there is Mahindra. We know. Now my question is, do you know any foreign companies that are automobile based in India? Yes, sir. There are, companies like this Toyota, and then there is this Tesla coming up now, etc. Sir, what are you trying to say? That India has own automobile, still India is importing automobile from outside. So in reality, something else is happening. While logically, India should only be importing machines and exporting labor, because India is labor rich. Other countries like America are capital rich. But in reality, even the labor rich country is also involved in producing capital goods, and a capital rich country is also involved to some extent in producing labor oriented goods. Understood, not understood, friends? Friends, understood, not understood? Yes or no? The auto industry in capital intensive Sweden, for example, export cars to capital intensive America, while Swedish consumers also import cars from America. So see, both have capital, Sweden and America. Both are capital rich. So ideally, no trade should take place between them because दोनों ही capital rich है. But it is indeed taking place. This is why, the findings of Krugman are so relevant. Krugman is very famous in this part of the world. Krugman defined free trade. He was passionate and showed deep concern for the well-being of people around the world. According to new trade theory, the very important thing, to keep concepts give advantages to country that import goods to compete with products from the home country. So if we are importing, why? So that प्रोडक्ट्स इन अवर कंट्री फेस कंपटीशन. हम लोग इसलिए इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं कि हमारी कंट्री में जो ऑलरेडी प्रोडक्ट्स बन रहा है उनका कंपटीशन लगे. इससे क्या फायदा होगा सर? ये तो खराब बात है. ये ये तो खराब बात है. आपके कंट्री में ऑटोमोबाइल होते हुए भी आप बाहर से क्यों मंगा रहे हो? ये तो खराब बात है. आपको तो टाटा और महिंद्रा को सपोर्ट करना चाहिए. तो फिर आप क्यों कोई और फॉरेन ब्रांड को आने दे रहे हो, जैसे टोयोटा हो गया या कोई भी हो गया? क्यों आने दे रहे हो आप? इसका रीजन है number one, economies of scale. As a firm produces more of a product, its cost per unit keeps going down. So if the firm serves domestic as well as foreign market instead of just one, then it can reap the benefit of large scale production. Consequently, the profits are likely to be higher. So the first reason is, if India doesn't allow foreign companies to come inside India, foreign companies will not allow Indian brands to go outside. And if you sell overall in the entire world, your per unit cost will fall. अगर आप पूरी दुनिया में सामान बेचेंगे तो आपका पर यूनिट कॉस्ट जो है वो कम होते चला जाएगा. तो आपका जो पर यूनिट कॉस्ट है वो कम होते चला जाएगा. नेक्स्ट नेक्स्ट सो वन एडवांटेज इज इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल. नाउ फ्रेंड्स, another thing is network effect. Network effect advantage. Sir, what? Network effect is basically bandwagon effect. Is what? Bandwagon effect. Sir, we did not understand. Bandwagon effect क्या होता है? समझिए. ये एंटिटी का एक एडवांटेज है. एंटिटी बता रहा है. क्या बोलता है ये आप लोग समझिएगा. ये बोलता है कि देखिए, कभी कभी कंज्यूमर्स, आई विल एक्सप्लेन इट इन इंग्लिश एज वेल, ओके, डोंट वरी, पहले हिंदी में बोल रहा हूं. कब कभी कभी कंज्यूमर्स प्रोडक्ट इसलिए खरीदता है. कभी कभी कंज्यूमर प्रोडक्ट इसलिए खरीदता है, इसलिए नहीं क्यों उसको चाहिए, इसलिए क्योंकि बाकी लोग भी वो प्रोडक्ट खरीद रहे हैं. इसको बोलते हैं बैंड वैगन इफेक्ट. तो न्यू ट्रेड थ्योरी बोलता है कि हम लोगों को बाहर का कमोडिटीज इसलिए अपने कंट्री में आना चाहिए, आने देना चाहिए, बिकॉज एक बैंड वैगन इफेक्ट डेवलप हो चुका है. एप्पल, आप एक बात बताइए ना, एक एप्पल का फोन है आप में किसी के पास, और मान लीजिए कि मेरे पास एक तो बेसिकली सिंपल एक, मैं अपने सामने एक वीवो ओप्पो का फोन रख रखा हूं, एक एग्जांपल मैं लेता हूं. तो मेरे को आप एक बात बताइए ना, जो लोग एप्पल ले रहे हैं वो लोग क्यों ले रहे हैं 1 लाख में? इसलिए क्योंकि बाकी लोगों के पास भी एप्पल है. क्योंकि लोगों को लगता है एप्पल लेने, एप्पल का फोन होने से प्रेस्टीज और सोशल क्लास ऊपर दिखता है. हाँ या ना बोलिए. यस, दैट इज व्हाट नेटवर्क इफेक्ट रेफर्स टू, जिसकी वजह से डिमांड क्रिएट होता है. So economy of scale is a supply benefit, while network effect is a demand benefit. Sir, so what does new trade theory say? New trade theory is, first of all, very practical in nature. It tells that despite it doesn't follow the Heckscher-Ohlin model. I will first of all summarize the new trade theory. It says 2 to 3 points. Number one, that in practicality, in reality, what should happen as per Heckscher-Ohlin? Capital rich countries should export capital goods to labor rich countries, and labor rich should export labor to capital rich countries. But in reality, it does not take place. In reality, capital goods export to capital, labor also exports to labor. It happens. Why? Because when you export more or when you sell more, per unit cost reduces, number one. And number two, a kind of brand loyalty develops in the favor of your product, that everybody wants to buy your product only. This is the new trade theory. So it is the theory of 1970s. supported by Krugman, supported by Krugman, supported by Krugman. Yes, दिव्या. दिव्या इज टेलिंग सर बैंड वैगन इफेक्ट हम लोग माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स में भी पढ़े हैं. दिव्या कहाँ पढ़े हो बताएं. आप लोग बैंड वैगन इफेक्ट माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स में पढ़े हो. चैप्टर डिमांड, एक्सेप्शंस टू द लॉ ऑफ डिमांड. इंस्टीट्यूट के मैट में दाहिने तरफ लिखा हुआ है वो बैंड वैगन इफेक्ट के ऊपर. एक्सेप्शन टू द लॉ ऑफ डिमांड. आई थिंक इंस्टीट्यूट बुक में वो पॉइंट नंबर 3 है. करेक्ट. तो चलिए अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. सपोर्टेड बाय क्रूगमैन. इट वाज सपोर्टेड बाय क्रूगमैन. मूविंग ऑन. It was supported by Krugman. Number one. Next thing is two benefits that we talk about. Two benefits we talk about of of new trade theory. Of new trade theory. Right. So two benefits of new trade theory. Let's talk about it. Number one, economies of scale. Economies of scale. This is a benefit from the supply side. This is a benefit from the supply side. Supply side. So what does it say? As a firm produces more products, its cost per unit keeps going down. So its cost per unit keeps going down. Number two, network effect. It operates from demand side. Demand side. What does it say? Sir, ये बोलता क्या? What does this theory say, sir? It says the way one person's one person values a good or a service, values a good or a service is affected by how others value it. एक चीज मुझे अच्छा लग रहा है. क्यों? क्योंकि मेरे दोस्त को अच्छा लग रहा है. The way one person values a good or a service is affected is affected by how others value it. By how others value it. Friends, I hope it's crystal clear to everybody. Yes or no? Come on, guys. Supply side means people are supplying, na? Then the per unit cost is falling. And network effect, people are demanding because others are demanding. So it is basically related to the bandwagon effect. Friends, if this is clear so far, then can we solve the back questions? Because you see, we have gone as per institute material completely. Yes or no, friends? And you know what the meaning of globalization is? Integration of domestic economy with the world economy. मतलब पूरे इकोनॉमी को खोलना जिससे इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट फ्रीली हो, उसको ग्लोबलाइजेशन बोलते हैं. Come on, everyone. Is it crystal clear, everybody? Yes or no? Come on, guys. Very good. Let's solve the MCQs now. So I think, friends, you would have found this topic very interesting. I personally love this topic because it talks about various theories of economics. And this is what we are here for, right? So then let's talk about it, friends. Okay, let's go then. So, friends, let's see what the first question is. Let's see what the first question is. Which of the following does not represent a difference? Acha, does not represent a difference between internal trade and international trade. Internal trade, I am sure you all know. Common sense. Domestic trade. Buying and selling of goods and services within the country. International trade means buying and selling between multiple countries. Which of the following does not represent a difference? Transaction in multiple countries currencies, yes, this is a difference because in India we deal in rupees, but if it had been America, then it would have been rupee and dollar. Does not represent a difference. Which is not a difference? Difference in legal system, yes, it is a difference, but wait, homogeneity of customers. Homogeneity, you understand, means exactly same. So friends, you all tell me, are the customers in India and America exactly same? Not at all. They are different. And that is why they are not homogeneous. This cannot be the difference. Homogeneity cannot be the difference. Homogeneity means it is saying that they are the same in both the countries. Customers. Is it? Definitely not. Is it so? Definitely not. Yes, sir, it's clear. Friends, one of our friends is asking network effect. Friends, network effect means that because your friend wants something, you also demand that thing, you also want it. Bus. That's it. Because your friend, because your group of friends like Domino's Pizza, you also like Domino's Pizza. That is bandwagon effect. That is network effect. Moving on. The theory of absolute advantage states that, acha, absolute, not comparative. National wealth and power are best served by increasing exports and decreasing imports. This is which theory? This is mercantile view. This is mercantile theory. We have been asked absolute advantage. Nations can increase their economic well-being by specializing in the production of goods. They produce more efficiently than anyone else. Correct answer. जिसमें हम बेस्ट है सबके मुकाबले, हम वो बनाएंगे. That is logical. Correct answer. जिसमें where I am better than others, I will involve in production of that commodity. Where I am better than others, friends. If I am better than others in a production of a certain commodity, I would involve in production of that commodity. Acha, sir, logical. Which of the following theory advocates that countries should produce those goods for which it has the greatest relative advantage? Acha, greatest relative advantage. Friends, greatest relative advantage. Friends, when we talk about this, modern theory doesn't say this. Factor endowment theory is nothing but another name for Heckscher-Ohlin theory only. So no, no. Answer is none of the above. Had there been comparative advantage theory, etc., then we would have
Recording in progress.
Increase its wealth by encouraging exports, हाँ, and decreasing imports. I am sure you will give the correct answer. मतलब very easy question. इससे easy हो ही नहीं सकता. Increase exports, decrease imports is given by what theory? Of course, mercantile theory. Sir, we have forgotten. See, I have made you right. भूल ही नहीं सकते. यही लिखे थे. कहाँ गया mercantile theory? ये रहा तो. Maximize exports, minimize imports. Okay, sir, we got it. Next. Given the number of labor hours, given the number of labor hours to produce cloth and grain in two countries, which country should produce grain? अच्छा, किसको grain बनाना चाहिए? Same, given the labor hours मतलब same hours में लिखा हुआ है. Which country should produce grain? देखते हैं. Country A can make 40 cloth, that country B makes 80 cloth. While so country B has absolute advantage over cloth. Which country should produce grain? Acha, the question is which country should produce grain? While country B, while country B, while country B, the question is which country should produce grain? Acha, country A has 80 acha, labor hours for production of 1 unit. So for 1 unit of grain, this country takes 80 hours, while country B takes 40 hours. So here, country A has absolute advantage. Why? Because to make 1 unit of cloth, country A takes 40 hours. While to make 1 unit of grain, country B takes 40 hours. So of course, grain should be done by country B. Because this is the time consumed that we are talking about. Unit is here. These are not the units. These are the hours. So hours to kam lena chahiye na. So country B should involve in production of grains, as it has advantage here. Absolute advantage rather. As it has absolute advantages here. Friends, is that clear? Yes or no? Yes or no? Come on. Very good. Now let's see. Now let's see. What is the sixth question? What they are demanding from us? Let's see here. According to the theory of comparative advantage. Acha, theory of comparative. Trade is a zero-sum game. Oh, zero-sum game. This language is used by this one. Mercantilist view. So zero-sum game has been told by mercantilist view. Okay. Trade is not a zero-sum game, yes, so that net change in wealth benefits among the participants in positive. So both nations benefit. This is comparative advantage. दोनों का फायदा होता है. एक का फायदा एक का नुकसान होता है, केवल ऐसा नहीं होता है. ये मर्केंटाइलिस्ट व्यू का मानना है कि ऐसा होता है. ये थोड़ा नैरो माइंडेड व्यू हो गया. ये थोड़ा नैरो माइंडेड व्यू हो गया. Let's move on to the next one. Let's see what is going on here. Given the number of labor hours to produce wheat and rice in two countries, and that these countries specialize and engage in trade at a relative price of 1:1, what will be the gain of country X? Good question. What will be the gain of country X? Gain or benefit of country X? See, labor hours for production of 1 unit. Gain of country X they are talking about. Okay, let's see. So country X can produce 1 unit of wheat in 10 hours, while country X can produce 1 unit of rice in 20 hours. Okay. Country Y, on the contrary, takes 20 hours for 1 unit of wheat and rice at 10 hours. So there is again a relative advantage that we can see. Absolute advantage we can see. For example, country X has absolute advantage in wheat. Country Y has absolute advantage in rice. Country X, because we have to tell the gain of country X. Country X will import rice. Country X will import rice. Everybody write down. Country X will import rice. Yes. So if country X खुद राइस बनाता, had country X itself produced rice, it would have taken 20 hours. But since it's importing rice, it's taking 10 hours. So what is the savings? 10 hours, that is the net gain. So the answer will be 10 labor hours, because we have been asked only the gain of country X, gain of country X. I am 100% sure you all are understanding this. Let's see. Assume India and Bangladesh have the unit labor requirements for producing tables and mats shown in the table below. It follows that labor cost for producing 1 unit of table in India is 3, while in Bangladesh is 8. So cheap, but here labor cost in hours, okay, but here it is 1. So here Bangladesh has advantage. It follows that Bangladesh has let's see, Bangladesh has comparative advantage in mats, that's true. India has comparative advantage in tables, ये भी सच है, ये भी सच है. अब भाई जब दो बात सच हो गया तो all the above are true लिख दो ना, इतना सोचना क्यों है? Why to think much? If both are true, that means all will be the answer. Moving on to the 9th one. Comparative advantage refers to comparative advantage refers to comparative advantage refers to a country's ability to produce some goods or services at the lowest possible cost compared to other countries. Some goods or services at the lowest possible cost compared to other countries. No, at a lower opportunity cost means additional unit. To make additional unit, a country's ability to produce some goods or services at a lower opportunity cost than other countries means to produce extra units. Here we are not concerned about total, here we are concerned about extra units. Okay, so B is the answer. Ricardo, acha, David Ricardo, the one that talked about comparative advantage, explained the comparative advantage on basis of cost. No, it talked about labor. I told you both this absolute and comparative theories deal with labor. Can you tell me one theory which deals with labor and capital both? Very good. Heckscher all-in theory. Heckscher all-in theory. So remember, David Ricardo's comparative advantage theory, that is CAT, comparative advantage theory. Adam Smith's absolute advantage theory, that is AT. Both focus on labor values. But when we talk about Heckscher all-in theory, hot. When we talk about Heckscher all-in theory, then we talk about capital plus labor. A very important MCQ can come from here, if you all notice it carefully. One of the friends is telling to re-explain 7th number. Okay, let me take the name of that friend. Prince and Harsh. Okay, Prince and Harsh, you all tell me, both of you tell me, आप लोग मेरे को बताइए, कंट्री एक्स वीट बनाने में 10 घंटे लेता है और राइस में, तो कंट्री एक्स को क्या करना चाहिए? वीट बनाना चाहिए. ठीक, अब कंट्री एक्स अगर वीट बना रहा है खुद, तो खरीदेगा क्या? राइस. राइस कंट्री एक्स को मिल गया, ठीक है, किधर से? कंट्री वाई से, जो कितने देर में बन जाएगा? 10 घंटे में. अगर कंट्री एक्स खुद बना रहा होता तो राइस में कितना देर लगता? 20 घंटा. बट कंट्री एक्स तो राइस मंगा रहा है, राइस खरीद रहा है, ना कि खुद बना रहा है, हाँ या ना? तो कितना देर बचा? 10 घंटा। खत्म हो गया बात। So the answer is 10 labor hours. So the answer is 10 labor hours. Come on, friends. Is this clear? Yes or no? Come on, friends. Yes or no? So what we did today in today's class was basically we followed a chronological order where we first studied the definition of international trade. Then then we discussed some advantages plus some disadvantages of international trade. Then after we did that, we spoke about 3 to 5 theories, actually five. Mercantilist view. It tells that the more you export is the better it is. More the exports, the better it is. Then we come back to the second theory, which was the theory of absolute advantage given by Adam Smith. It tells you that you should produce your strength and export your strength, import your weakness. Comparative advantage is applicable, that is the third theory, when country has advantage in absolute advantage in both the products, then you should produce that product in which you have a greater comparative advantage, and both of them make use of labor only. Then there is Heckscher Ohlin theory, which says that whatever you have in surplus labor, then you produce labor goods and export. If you have capital in surplus, you produce capital goods and export. New trade theory, it talks about network effects and economies of scale. So friends, this topic is finally over. Next day, we are going to talk about trade policies, etc. That is whatever is next. Trade policy is next. So we are going to speak about trade policy. I am sure. And also we will discuss some more discussion. There will be slight revision of international trade theories as well. Is that clear, friends? Okay, very good. Very good. Done? Okay. So goodbye, everyone. That's it for the day. Thank you very much. Tata.